Hello, Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you for joining us today, where we're going to talk about the art of forgiveness. In a moment, I'll be introducing myself and our guest speaker for today. And for a while, let's just have a few minutes until other participants join us as well. In the meantime, I'll re-explain what I'm doing here. Basically, I'm using this platform to connect with other coaches and other therapists who are in the field of self-improvement, and not only that, in the field of being a better version of yourself in general. And I've founded this during the lockdown actually, and it's been honestly a very good experience so far. Connecting with people from all around the world. Alhamdulillah, like we've had people join us all the way from Canada. Now we have our guest speaker who's joining us from Saudi Arabia. We're super happy
Yeah.
to have you. Ala, in a moment, I'll be introducing you as well. So this work is basically for people who have, interest in these topics, and not only that, can implement change for themselves and for others. As we go in life, the more we hear about these things, the more likely we are going to follow them and do some changes with ourselves and with our lives as well. So today we have Ala, and I'm super happy to have you with us here, Ala, to talk about this
Thank
very
you.
nice topic. I know it might be heavy in some instances, but inshallah it's going to be light by the time we are done. And as the participants join, I'm going to be admitting them in. So in the meantime, we'll continue on with the program. So basically, Ala Al Haji, she's a registered art therapist. She's a counselor and certified clinical trauma professional as well. Her experience working with adults and children and recovering from trauma using trauma-informed approach. And I think they call it, there's a name to it, right? You're going to be
Important.
yes, exactly. And a human-centered perspective, implementing a variety of creative techniques and interventions when it comes to trauma work, and working with the creative sense of making art, and really going through the process of understanding what's happening and how people can implement change even with those um, instances of their experience. And today, inshallah, we'll be talking about the healing process. How can art help in the healing process? What is the approach of forgiveness and healing trauma? And also, we'll be talking about how art therapy can aid in this process. There is also at the end, we're going to be talking about also, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to use the chat, the Zoom chat. Raise any questions, any comments. We'd be happy to have you in the conversation as well, because this is your time. And as much as we are learning from each other, we are also learning from you guys. So Ala, tell us about yourself in a more specific way, and in a way where, you also tell us about your purpose with this work that you're doing.
That was a good introduction, Fatma. So thank you very much. Thank you also for inviting me here in this amazing space to share ideas, to share feelings, to share, and witness great topics to have. So thank you very much. Thank you also to everybody who's joining us, and also who would be joining us as we go. As Fatma said, I am an art therapist and a counselor. I'm also a trauma practitioner and a professional, as they say it. I'm trained in trauma work. I love helping people, and I think that's the main purpose that made me do this work. I love to be in the role of a helper. I came to know art as a tool of expression, a tool of healing, and in many times in my life where it was a little bit hard. And then I came to know that we can actually use this power to help other people in their healing process. And that what kind of took me into, and like, push pushed me towards pursuing a career in art therapy and counseling. I also found when I went into the helping field, I came to know that most of what we have, either, pain or, as they call it, disorders, in the book language, all of these are kind of deep in our psyche, all come from some trauma in our life. Very, very affected. So when you actually pull the threads of kind of these pain and these feelings, you find that big disturbing event in somebody's life, that caused that trauma. So I felt like it is very important to tackle, very important to talk about, very important to inform people about it, very important to actually inform professionals about it as well. It's not about staying in the surface of the disorders or of whatever we are dealing with. It's about going deeper and investigating on whatever the reason why we are dealing with whatever we're dealing with, and that's why I became very interested in the work of trauma. Also, in my kind of journey of kind of seeking more knowledge, I found that art therapy, worked very well with trauma work, because it provides that. And I'm going to give a little bit of introduction for people who don't know art therapy as well. But, the power of art or creativity gives people kind of a safe space or even a safe distance to deal with their hard times, hard events, trauma in a much safer way. We don't have to kind of face it right away. We can have that safe distance between us and our traumatic experiences through art. And I found it very, very helpful with the people I have worked with,
And even if I could interject here and say, dealing with trauma patients especially, it's difficult. It's a very heavy process that they got to go through, because they can't just stay in that space, although it's been a very heavy experience, as I would describe it.
Yes.
Now, as as going through the artwork and the creative process, what have you found that has helped people at least, start to take that first step? Because as we all know, taking the first step
Yes.
might be the most difficult, and it's also the start of change.
Exactly. And that's what I meant when I kind of talked about art and the connection and how it helps in trauma work. When you are drawing something, or when you're using creativity or metaphors or images or visuals, you're kind of putting that distance. For example, to put it in, in examples to make it easier, when I talk about my hard experience, talking about it involves remembering it and then kind of being in it. And that's tremendously hard. It's not easy. When I actually put it on a paper in front of me, or put it through a sculpture, or use a creativity, like write it on a paper and then burn the paper out, or put it in a balloon and let the balloon go in the sky, all of these kind of experiences, creative experiences to be specific, make it so easier to start. With art therapy, we go very deep, but at least it provides that distance to actually make it more encouraging for people to start the healing process. Oh, it's art, it's fun, it's colors, it's it's all of that. It's not that scary, like talking about my heart experience. I'm just dealing with papers, I'm just dealing with colors. That's easy, I can deal with that. Later on, when you build the relationship, the therapeutic relationship with the person that you're kind of trying to help, then it's time to kind of dig deeper, and you kind of know the good timing for that.
Definitely. And I would also say I'm a hypnotherapist myself and a coach as well. So we
Mhm.
create this outside of us to disassociate the event. So when you disassociate, you put it outside instead of talking about it from memory, as you mentioned, it puts you back in that space, associating
Exactly.
with it. But
Hmm.
taking it out through art, or whether we're taking them through the hypnotic state and then they see the movie playing in front of them, it's
Hmm.
different. It
Yeah.
creates this association. And
Or
now
that. Yeah.
looking at this art, what would inspire yani, I mean, this art piece could say a lot of things for a lot of people, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What would you say, yani, looking at this?
I think, yeah, just like you said, it can say a lot of things. Just like how art, that's the magic of art. It can say different things to many different people, right? But let's connect it to the topic of today's meeting, right? The forgiveness. I think, you know, with this picture, that person or any person, you know, holding emotions, many emotions, very tangled and unpacked emotions, trying to hold on to them at the same time wanting to let go of them because they're, you know, as you can see, I don't know, but like very heavy to hold, and they're not really like boxy or small, that's, you know, for us easy to hold. It's messy, you know. So I think to connect it back to forgiveness, or even to start talking about the forgiveness, um, forgiveness is a big word, and it's a big virtue that we hear a lot in our daily culture, or even in, you know, in many occasions, that it is the magical thing that can heal you, or, you know, it's what we are encouraged to do, right? And that can get dangerous and messy at the same time, you know, if forgiveness is forced or pushed on a person when they're not ready for it. Um, you know, science and many studies have kind of concluded that with forgiveness, a lot of people would have, you know, better results in kind of how to deal with their lives and kind of be in the moment and live the present life. It has really good kind of impact on you as a person. But when it comes in a good time, on the perfect time, because usually when kind of forgiveness is kind of like the other part of the trauma, right? It's kind of, or the other side of the token, or the other side of the coin. Kind of when a traumatic event happens to you, or an offender, let's say an offender or a violator to you does something, right? You are encouraged in the other side of the token to forgive and to let go, right? The other part of it. So there's an event, there's a horrible traumatic event that happened. With that, you know, comes feelings of sadness, of anger, of anxiety, of sometimes, you know, bitterness, sometimes kind of holding grudges, and sometimes, you know, it becomes chronic. It becomes, that anger becomes chronic, and you become angry all the time. You become depressed. That anxiety becomes a daily thing. And here where it becomes dangerous. Here where forgiveness is kind of given as a choice. Forgive, let go, live your present life. You know, you see what it's happening to you, you know, you see what it's doing to you. Just let it go. And that can be dangerous, you know.
Yes.
Sometimes that anger is justified. Sometimes that sadness is good because it's part of the processing journey, you know. I have the right to be in that, you know, state of not forgiveness. You know, we don't have the opposite word of forgiveness, unfortunately, but we we sometimes need to not forgive for some time. And that space of not forgiving is very important for us to heal and to process those feelings, and to work on ourselves. And why am I holding grudges? Why am I being angry? Like asking all these questions and digging very deep. Yes, forgiveness, it might kind of repair relationships sometimes, but it would be on the cost or of somebody's well-being, the person who is responsible for the forgiveness.
Yes, and definitely I would add to that, because it's a process, as you mentioned. It could be in a cycle or in whatever shape and form people would like to go with. It's allowing myself to feel all the feelings that I'm entitled to, because we're all, if we don't feel these feelings, then we wouldn't be able to know what's not good and what's good. And if we don't, say, for example, let's take fear as an emotion. If people were fearless, then you'll see people jumping from the top of the buildings and falling down and dying. So fear is a good emotion. It's a good indicator that, whoa, this is not something good for my survival. And especially processing traumatic experiences is based on going from that side of surviving the incident, or surviving the thing that happened. And as I can see here in the picture, so basically she is carrying this load of things that are going with her. At some point, dropping it and letting go of it, and at the right time, as you mentioned. And for each and every one of us, it's a different right time. Who knows? It could be in a month, in a year. Who knows? When the person is ready, they're going to be able to let it go. Halas, it's not serving me anymore. Not that it has been serving me. It's just a way of working, dealing with the experiences that one would have, even the uncomfortable experiences. So speaking about that,
absolutely.
Yes, I think you lagged a little bit. Okay, now you're back online. Now looking at the different art pieces here. Hello? I think we lost Ala for the connection is... Hello, Ala? Let's wait for a minute. Technology, sometimes it works, sometimes it lags. Welcome back, Ala.
Yes, I lost you for a little bit, and then I got out for some reason.
It's okay. Sometimes the internet works in interesting ways. Okay, so now I reached to this point where there are multiple ways of experiencing art. It could be in writing, it could be in drawing, it could be in doing any kind of processing.
Absolutely.
What would you say has been the most effective experience for people?
I think it's always different, it's always different for different people, different occasions, different conditions for them. It is very important for the art therapist to know what to prescribe. I like to use the prescribing kind of description to kind of give that kind of expertise in it. So it is always different, depends on the person and depend on their current state, right? So sometimes I work with clay, sometimes I work with painting, sometimes I work with drawing, sometimes we don't, sometimes we just imagine things, and that's how creativity kicks in, sometimes like I have used an imaginary box with somebody and they're like, okay, let's imagine this is a box where you put all of your emotions in it, and then let's close it for today so we can allow for other emotions to rise, and then you can take it with you by the end of the day. Something like that. It doesn't have to be tangible, creativity can be in any way that is working for the person, any person. I don't know if that was, if that answered your question.
It is, definitely is, as you mentioned, Yani. I know when I think of art, I could think of paintings. I can think of, taking a diary and just scribbling on it, because this
Mm-hmm.
has helped me in the past. Just, taking a white paper and
Yes.
just, writing so many things. I can't even understand what I'm writing. I'm just like
Mm-hmm.
pouring it out.
Yes.
And then I just feel so good after it. It's a very relieving process that I've heard from somewhere, or someone might have recommended it to me,
Yeah.
but it helped. Although now I know, understand. I don't even know what I've written, but it's a process basically of
You put it out.
allowing, yeah, allowing yourself this space, as you can see here, this empty space to just color, write, draw, whatever it is that will let these things come out,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
whether we can comprehend them now or not.
Yes.
It's just giving space, I would say.
Yep. Definitely. Absolutely.
And I wanted to ask you, working with kids
Mm-hmm.
now, specifically with kids, I would say, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, things would hit me in a different way. Like now, as an adult, I'm able to just brush off some things, well, not so many times,
Yeah.
but as a kid, I remember like silly things, silly comments would really affect. And now, if we interact with kids, almost all of us do.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give in actually, just getting them to this process of creating something that can help them?
So kind of use the power of art in a not rigid way. I'm kind of hearing the question from you. صح?
Yes, صح.
So I get that question a lot. So there's, and I have kind of put it in my page recently, the difference between learning art and using it in therapy, or even in the healing process, or even just for expression. You don't have to go to therapy to use art, but you can use it. You have it in your hands, and you can use it anytime you want. So there's this difference between using art in that kind of rigid way, technical way, learned way, which is not wrong in of itself. Okay, but that's the way we learned it. When we go to school, that's how we learn. We learn art. You draw this in this way, and that's the only way to do it. Because it's technical. It's a technical process, just like any other thing, like learning any other thing. In the other hand, art therapy, or using the art in an expressive way, has no rules. When you're actually giving the child, speaking of children now, you're giving the child another language that is so innate to their nature, right? Because we used art forever ago as a language to communicate before these written languages or spoken languages that we know nowadays. From looking at anthropology, research, we can see the art on the caves. People that time, needed art to communicate something, to tell a story, to get something out of them, right? On the walls. So same with kids. We're giving them this tool to use to express themselves. That's it. That is what it should be. In the context of not learning art, that's very important, because when you need to learn the techniques of art, that's what school is for, and that's the space for it. But when you're doing it with your kid at home, just for them to express, or have an additional language that they can use, because sometimes they're not very expressive like us. We've used the English language or the Arabic language for so many years, and now we're experts. Now we're experts of hiding things. Now we're experts of editing what we want to say. Now we're experts of kind of twisting the words and all of that, right? We're experts in language. Kids, they're not experts in that, right? And sometimes they find it very hard to express themselves using words. So when we give them colors and we give them movement and we give them, paper, and we tell them, hey, give me something. What are you feeling? And you don't have to hear the answer of what they're feeling. You can see it, right? And then you can ask questions and not direct to what you see, but direct to them. You know, what does that look like? How did that feel? Do you feel better? Do you feel worse? Asking questions about the process. So that's how we can use it with kids, in a means for expression and not for education per se.
Would definitely agree with you. I mean, it's a way of them getting their hands in it, doing
Yeah.
whatever it is they want to do. And this also brings me to, experiencing things for the first time. As you said, when we go to school, they teach us the technical part of it, this tool and that tool. That's how you wash this brush to make it,
Yeah.
keep it soft for using.
Yes.
But when it comes to actually using it without any rules, it gives us the freedom, and children, gives everyone the freedom to do whatever it is they have to do or they need to do to process something.
Yes.
Whether they're processing their feelings right now, whether they're just doing it just to do something different, it also helps. Everything helps that is not focused on, the not so good stuff, like the uncomfortable stuff. Letting
Yes.
it out,
Yeah.
out in the air, looking at it, and doing something other than the thing that happened,
Mm.
helps in at least giving that space so that the person can actually see that there are other things that I can do to help myself in this instance. If I can't speak about it, if I can't, if even as an adult, I wouldn't want to say everything that's not so good and all these things. I would
Right.
want to be able to express it in another way. Unfortunately, some of us didn't have any ways of expressing it. So what they would do is keep quiet or just express it as an anger thing, right? They would lash out at other people who have
Healthy,
nothing to do
yeah,
with.
unhealthy coping. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's a coping mechanism. Again, the mind is doing things to help and protect because they feel that they are threatened somehow, perhaps maybe because of an incident of even maybe of something that was small now, but was big at the time.
Yes. Oh yes,
So
definitely.
yeah, and I would also say definitely nature helps a lot. I really like this picture. I mean, I just put it there just to say that you can just splash out things like the splashing out the colors, splashing out your emotions, and let it be what it is and enjoy it.
Yes.
Not so
And
much.
yeah, like supply, like this the word you said, like splash, like kind of like just let it go, and like in that kind of messy way. Um, with art, you can contain that mess, but still be messy. A lot of times I like put a whole or like a roll of paper on the floor, or even like with adults and kids, and we just splurt and splash paint all over, or even like throw things around, but still at the same time it's safe. It's not lashing out on a person, it's not displacement things, it's displacement, but in a very safe way, kind of using our innate coping skills or coping mechanisms that we use and we have in our unconscious or in our psyche wirings, and use it in a safe way. The same displacement that we use sometimes, kind of we use it on our parents, on our partners, our kids. We can displace it, but on a paper. Use the same mechanism, but in a safer way. So yeah, thank you for bringing that picture.
Yeah, and putting it out will actually help the person
Mm-hmm.
in a while to really reach that place of peace and forgiveness. Because
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, I would say that when someone carries something heavy,
Yes.
for the first time we'd be like, okay, fine, I'll just carry this thing, physically carry it.
Mm-hmm.
And then in a while, after a few hours, it really feels so heavy that I can't carry it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So physically, I would let go of this heavy thing. Now,
Mm-hmm.
our emotions, we cannot touch them, we cannot see them, but we can feel
Has the
them.
same effect, yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And what I wanted to say that yes, you have the right to your anger, your all the other emotions you use to process these things, and at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, you also have the right to peace of mind,
Yes,
even with these uncomfortable situations that happen. They
absolutely.
happen. We sometimes forget, when we are in our own space or our own bubble or our own even day-to-day activities, we forget about these other interactions that we have with the people or even with others, yeah, around us.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes when we face an uncomfortable experience.
Mm-hmm. It just comes out.
Exactly. So 100%. I would say that for me to reach this point, I had to really understand
Mm-hmm.
that carrying the pain I had before wasn't really helping me.
Absolutely.
Although some part of me was benefiting. Was, yani, the benefit was basically, this is my thing. This is, you have no idea what I went through or this or that. But when I
Mm-hmm.
really understood back then, when
Mm-hmm.
it was not serving me in a good way, in a way that I would want to be served, I had to really understand how I can process it in a way where now in the future, this thing isn't happening anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say for different people, they sometimes tell them, you can talk to the person, or in some instances, people who don't want to talk to that person who have hurt them in any sort of way,
Mm-hmm.
what would they do is basically perhaps talk to them in a paper or even in art,
Mm-hmm.
draw something that would show me, I can perhaps maybe want to show this therapist who is helping me, or like just have it out where you can communicate about this thing, because letting
Yes.
everything in isn't very helpful.
Exactly. And I think also another important point where you have the right to build your boundaries, your own boundaries in that process. So if that means you don't want to talk to that person for that time until you heal, you have all the right to do that, to do so. And even if you know, if you feel like you healed, right, and you let it go and you're ready to forgive, you can forgive and still build a very rigid boundaries be- with that person, right? You still have that right. Relationship don't have to go back to the same state as it was before, the violation. you know, um, that's what you needed, and that's what you need. So boundaries are very important in the topic, or even the forgiveness. It's it provides again that kind of safety in how I'm dealing with my emotions and how I'm kind of perceiving this, or I'm getting ready to move on. It kind of brings me that safety out. I actually can let go, but still feel safe because I build those boundaries, very clear boundaries, with that other person.
No, definitely. And understanding this, giving ourselves this right, also
Mm-hmm.
allows us to say, you know what, maybe that relationship wasn't serving me, or that person wasn't serving me in the way that I would want to grow from here.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps maybe right now I'm a different person because of that incident or because of that experience, and
Yeah.
now I know better.
Mm-hmm.
Because when
Absolutely.
back then we didn't have the experience to know any better, and I would say all the time these experiences happen. They give us something. There is always an advantage, even to the disadvantaged situation. There is always something to learn, and looking through this lens of finding the advantage in everything
Mm-hmm.
really helps us understand there is something to look from this experience and move on in life. Lesson learned.
Right. That's right. Kind of change your perspective instead of focusing on what hurts. Kind of like
Exactly.
focus on the bigger picture. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and reframing, looking at it from a different perspective, or even dropping it. And perhaps, as you said, like with the box, like keeping the emotions in the box, keeping
Mm-hmm.
them all in the box, and then
Yeah.
maybe coming back to them after, just to
Mm-hmm.
give myself this, be more compassionate with myself.
Yes.
One time I had an opportunity to ask a monk about empathy and compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling him, like, if someone is close to me who is suffering, because, with this work, you
Mm-hmm.
have the person experiencing the trauma coming out of it, and you have the people around him or her wanting to help, but not really having the tool or really understanding how to. So I
Yes.
had a question about what is the difference between empathy and compassion. And I remember he told me that um, when you have empathy for someone, you feel pain. I mean, you feel bad for them or you feel sad with them, and it's as if the person is drowning and you're drowning with them. But
Mm-hmm.
he said instead, compassion is basically understanding that this person is going through something, at the same time being able to come into the water and like taking them out, helping
Mm-hmm.
them swim perhaps, or like pulling them out instead of drowning with them. And I
Yes.
believe it takes a while for someone to reach this, even especially if it's a loved one, especially if it was a family member or something even close than that, to really have that compassion side for themselves and for others as well. Because when I'm good, everyone else is good around me.
Exactly. Yes. It's very tricky. It's a very tricky process. When you're helping, kind of not drowning with the other people, with the other person that you are helping. So it kind of like depends on when you're giving the help, and it's very tricky. If you need help yourself, you can't just go and help that person, because you're gonna just go with them, and the wave is just gonna take you both. So yeah, it is very important
Yes,
to
and thankfully we have tools such as art, we have tools such as, talking even about things, or perhaps maybe giving
therapy.
yourself, yeah, a vacation, or like doing something other than the thing that would remind me of it, and then perhaps visiting it at a different time. Also, I would say meditation is another one,
Mm-hmm.
uh, building that space within me to breathe, breathing in, breathing out.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things compound the healing process, I would say.
Yes.
First, I wanted to say thank you. Really, we have covered most of the things that we wanted to cover today, and I'm very much, I love to be on time, and I love that, we don't take more of your time, your valuable
Yes.
time. In a conclusion, I would say, given all of these parts of us, given all of these, the ability to heal, the ability to forgive, and the ability to experience pain, and, for example, other emotions, uncomfortable emotions, I would say.
Yes.
Um, as a conclusion part, what would you say art can help with this way?
Um, art is a tool. Art is a space. Art is a language. You know, um, and it's it's very friendly. I would kind of use that. It's very friendly. You can adapt it to any way you want it to help you. So use it, and hopefully you will see the difference. If you feel like you don't know how, you can ask some experts or professionals, but start. I would invite everybody to start kind of playing around with art and see where that lands them.
Definitely. And just as you practice your exercising, you practice this muscle, the creative muscle, you can
Mm-hmm.
also practice letting go of things, looking at them in front of you. And perhaps now is the right time, right? Who
Yes.
knows? Like, what is the right time for you? So, as Ala said, just start. First, I really wanted to thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you to have you here and to have all these participants with us today.
Thank you.
Inshallah, yeah, I'll send you the recording, and I'm super happy to have been able to talk about this topic, especially that it's, you know, the art of forgiveness and going through the traumatic experiences that people go through in life, and coming out the other side feeling peaceful and forgiving, the ability to forgive the event, themselves and others. I understand that this topic is heavy, and we have made it as light as we can, you know, playing with the creative tools that you guys have. Ala, if you have, you know, the one last comment, and inshallah we're going to end this session.
If nobody have any questions or anything, I invite everybody to use their power of creativity and be well.
Inshallah. So thank you so much. I'll definitely put your account so that if people have any more questions, you guys can directly ask Ala on Instagram. She was gonna definitely respond to you guys and your questions. So thank you so much for being here today, and thank you, Ala, for your time. Enjoy, everyone, a good evening, and hopefully, inshallah, you'll tell us about your artworks in the next sessions. Next Saturday, inshallah, we'll be talking about different kind of meditation, and we actually have the guest speaker here with us on the participants, inshallah, and it's going to be a wonderful experience, inshallah, as well. So thank you, guys, and inshallah, I'll see you next Saturday at the same time, 8:30, and thank you, Ala. Ma'a salama. Have a good night.